Okay, so let's just jump right in. If you're listening to this, you know Harrison Ford, you know the voice.
Oh, absolutely.
That wry smile, the sort of world weariness mixed with this, inherent heroism. He is, I think, arguably the most successful working action hero of the last 50 years.
Without a doubt. And the man is still going, born July 13th, 1942, so he's 83, and still taking on these massive roles. We're talking about a career spanning 7 full decades.
7 decades.
But it's not just the longevity that defines him, right? It's the sheer financial power. If you just look at the raw numbers, the global box office...
That's staggering.
His films have pulled in well over $10 billion.
Yeah.
$10 billion. I mean, that speaks to a kind of universal, bankable appeal that very, very few actors in history can even come close to.
And when you hear that number, your mind immediately goes to the franchises. That's the core identity we all have of them, right?
Right.
Han Solo in Star Wars, the fedora and the whip of Indiana Jones, the moody Rick Deckard in Blade Runner.
And Jack Ryan, don't forget him. Plus, now he's jumping into the MCU.
Right. As General Thaddeus Ross in the new Captain America movie in 2025. That portfolio alone is just, it's legendary.
It absolutely is. It establishes him as this definitive star, an action hero who could carry these huge global blockbusters from the late 70s all the way through the early 2000s and, well, even now.
But that's why we're doing this.
Exactly. The purpose of this deep dive is to go beyond that cinematic image. Our mission here is to explore not just the blockbusters, but the profoundly unconventional journey he took to get there.
The weird stuff.
The weird stuff, the unexpected careers, his off-screen dedication to flying, the rescue work, his deep commitment to environmentalism, and, the awards that recognize his whole life, not just the acting.
It's like you see the finished mansion, but you don't understand that every single nail was driven by hand after a series of failures.
That's a great way to put it.
Because the journey to becoming this cultural icon is so much weirder and, frankly, so much harder than anyone realizes. This is a story about failure and expulsion and a radical forced reinvention.
And to really get it, we have to start at the very beginning. It's the only way to understand where that resilience comes from.
Okay, so let's do it. Chicago, Illinois. Harrison Ford's early life really gives you this fascinating cultural template. It's a mashup of, classic American immigrant history and this mid-century liberal upbringing.
And that family background is so crucial to understanding who he becomes later, especially with his political and social conscience.
Tell us about his parents.
So his mother, Dorothy Nettleman, was a former radio actress. She was Ashkenazi Jewish, and her parents had immigrated from Minsk in Belarus. His father was John William Ford, an advertising exec and also a former actor, and he was of Irish Catholic descent.
So it's a classic American melting pot story.
It really is. And Ford always talked about this mix with that trademark dry humor. When people asked about his religious upbringing, he joked that he and his brother were raised Democrat.
Oh, right.
But on a more serious note, he said they were raised to be liberals of every stripe, which really emphasizes that social justice focus they grew up with.
And he had that one perfect line about it, didn't he? When he was reflecting on his heritage.
He did. He said, "As a man, I've always felt Irish. As an actor, I've always felt Jewish."
I mean, what a line. It's so concise. It captures both the personality, the grounded, sometimes quiet man, and then the performer, the emotional, articulate actor.
Absolutely. But what's really fascinating is the path he took before Hollywood. I mean, he was not some child prodigy who was just destined for the stage.
No, not at all. His development was slow. It was hesitant.
By all accounts, he was a late bloomer. But there are these amazing little details from his adolescence that feel like foreshadowing, connecting the real guy to the future myth.
Like the Boy Scout stuff.
Exactly. He achieved the rank of Life Scout, and get this, he worked as a counselor for the Reptile Study Merit Badge.
Which is a detail that George Lucas later just takes and weaves directly into the Indiana Jones story.
Yep. In The Last Crusade, young Indy is shown as a Life Scout. It's this wonderful little piece of synergy where the man's reality informs the fiction.
But his academic path was, well, it was a disaster. It shows a real struggle to find any kind of direction. He went to Ripon College in Wisconsin as a philosophy major.
A philosophy major?
And he only took a drama class in his senior year. And his reason for it was basically to overcome this really intense shyness. He just got completely fascinated with acting, but it was.
Yeah.
It was too late to save his academic career.
And this is the detail that just makes his whole success story feel so improbable. 4 days, just 4 days before he was supposed to graduate with his degree, He was expelled.
Expelled for what?
Plagiarism.
Wow.
I mean, can you imagine the emotional blow of that? You were that close to the finish line, and the whole conventional life path is just ripped away from you.
It speaks to this inability to conform, I think.
Hmm.
And it makes his move to Los Angeles in 1964 feel almost desperate.
Well, yeah. He didn't have a plan B. The rug had just been completely pulled out from under plan A.
So he gets to L.A., he signs with Columbia Pictures' new talent program. And his first attempts at acting are just marked by one humiliation after another. His first known role, in 1966, was an uncredited bellhop.
And that's where he gets this famous, just brutal piece of criticism that would have ended most people's careers right there. A producer, Jerry Tarkovsky, tells him he just doesn't have star quality.
Right, the Tony Curtis story.
The Tony Curtis story. Tarkovsky said that when Tony Curtis delivers a bag of groceries, you can tell he's a movie star. But when Ford did it, he was just a bellhop. There was nothing special there.
And Ford's immediate response, which is just pure Han Solo before Han Solo existed.
Oh, yeah.
He challenges the producer. He says, well, if Tony Curtis were a truly talented actor, he'd deliver the groceries like a bellhop, not like a star playing a bellhop.
That audacity, I mean, it cost him. He was apparently fired pretty soon after that. It's such a key indicator of his personality. He values truth, even if it tanks his career.
And we should probably mention the name thing really quick. Yeah, he was initially credited as Harrison J. Ford.
Right, and the J stood for absolutely nothing. He has no middle name. It was just added to avoid confusion with an old, silent film actor, also named Harrison Ford, who had died back in 1957.
He dropped it pretty fast once he got famous.
Once he became the Harrison Ford, yeah.
Then came what might have been the most crushing rejection of all. The one that really defined his low point. The French filmmaker Jacques Demy wanted him for the lead in a 1969 film called Model Shop.
And Demy saw the raw talent, but the head of Columbia Pictures just shut it down. Infamously said that Ford had no future in the film business.
The studio itself was actively trying to stop him just because they thought he was unmarketable.
So what do? You're a philosophy major who got expelled? Studio execs are telling you have no future, you need money, you need stability, you have a wife and kids.
You rebuild your life with wood and nails.
He becomes a self-taught professional carpenter, and we have to emphasize this was not some kind of cool side gig.
No, this was a full-time, high-skill job he had to learn to support his family. He was building custom cabinets, decks, recording studios.
And this is where his life gets so interesting. He's in the shadows, but he's intertwined with the very people-defining 70s culture. His clients were incredible. People like the writers Joan Didion and John Gregory Dunn.
I remember that from the documentary about her, The Center Will Not Hold. You can actually see photos of him. He was just the contractor, the guy fixing the shelves, observing this world of fame from a few feet away.
Those Carpenter years, they weren't wasted time. They were the forge. He was learning discipline, patience, and he was watching the chaos of the people who held the keys to the kingdom he wanted to enter.
It also gave him distance. He had a trade, a respectable one. He didn't have that desperation that poisoned so many young actors.
Exactly. If Hollywood didn't work out, he could always go back to carpentry. That gave him the freedom to be himself, to challenge producers.
And ironically, it was the carpentry that finally brought him back into the industry. But this time, it was on his terms.
The tide finally turns when his trade intersects with this new wave of directors. And the key names here are, of course, George Lucas and Francis Ford Coppola.
So a casting director, Fred Roos, gets him an audition with Lucas, and that leads to him playing the street racer Bob Felfa in American Graffiti in 1973.
It was a small hit, but it created this huge relationship. Francis Ford Coppola, who was flying high after The Godfather, then actively sought Ford out. And he didn't just give him small acting roles.
He hired him as a carpenter.
Yeah, he hired Ford to do work in his personal office. He was supporting him both ways.
Ford even had a little inside joke role in Apocalypse Now, playing a colonel named G. Lucas.
Right. A little nod to the friendship building between these guys who were about to change cinema forever. But the really life-changing moment came disguised as, like, a simple favor.
This story still blows my mind because it sounds like a Hollywood fantasy of how you get discovered. He wasn't even asked to audition for Star Wars.
No, he was just hired by Lucas to read lines opposite the actors who were auditioning. He was basically a talented background voice to help the process along.
And Lucas was reluctant to cast him.
Super reluctant. They'd already done American Graffiti. He didn't want it to look like he was just casting his buddies. But as Ford read those cynical, roguish Han Solo lines over and over,
With his natural charisma and improvisational skill.
Lucas realized the perfect actor was already sitting right there in the room, helping other people get the job.
And just like that, Han Solo was born. He goes from being a self-taught carpenter who couldn't finish college to being the coolest guy in the galaxy almost overnight.
And this brings us to this really telling insight into Ford's artistic mind. When they were getting ready to do Return of the Jedi, Ford strongly advocated for Lucas to kill off Han Solo.
Wait, he wanted to kill off one of the most beloved characters in history. Why?
He argued that killing the character would have given the whole film a bottom.
What does he mean by a bottom?
Gravitas. A sense of real consequence, real narrative weight that went beyond just a simple happy ending. He felt that Han's sacrifice would validate the whole journey and raise the stakes for everyone else.
That is fascinating. It shows he wasn't just in it for the paycheck. He was deeply invested in the story's integrity, even if it meant writing himself out of a job.
Lucas refused, of course. But that artistic seriousness is what separates a star from a great actor. And right as the Star Wars trilogy was wrapping up, he launched his second generation-defining icon.
Indiana Jones.
And once again, Raiders of the Lost Ark in 1981, he was not the first choice.
No, history repeats itself. Lucas was still worried about overexposure from Star Wars.
Right. The role was famously offered to Tom Selleck,
Who couldn't do it because he was locked into his contract for Magnum PI.
Thank goodness for that contract. Spielberg was the one who was totally convinced. He had seen Ford's performance in the upcoming Empire Strikes Back and just knew he was the guy.
He saw that perfect blend of action hero, nerdy professor, and cynical humor.
But the Indiana Jones films were so physically demanding, and this is where we start to see this recurring theme in his career, which is serious on-set injuries.
The one on Temple of Doom was really bad, right?
Yeah. During filming in London for Temple of Doom in 1984, he herniated a disc in his back. It was so severe he had to be flown back to LA for major surgery. It was a 6-week layoff.
And there's that great story where he comes back, still recovering, and he's filming a fight scene while literally lying on a gurney between takes.
That level of physical commitment, even through intense pain, it just cemented his reputation.
So after these massive adventure franchises, he starts looking for roles to prove he could do more. He needed to show his dramatic range.
He did. He took on these high-stakes, dramatic parts, starting with the really dark philosophical sci-fi film Blade Runner in '82.
What a pivot. From the high adventure of Indy to the dystopian gloom of Rick Deckard.
And it was a really difficult shoot. Ford and the director, Ridley Scott, famously disagreed about the nature of the character, especially about whether Deckard himself was a replicant. Ford called the whole experience a long slog.
But the film, even though it wasn't a huge hit at first, it became this revered cult classic. It established his credibility in, sophisticated films that ask big questions.
But the real test of his dramatic muscle came with Witness in 1985.
Ah, yes.
Playing John Book, the detective protecting an Amish boy.
No.
He tapped into this quiet intensity. And that performance finally got him his sole Academy Award nomination for Best Actor.
That Oscar nomination was so important. It validated him beyond the whip and the spaceship. It proved his peers took him seriously as a dramatic actor.
And he had such respect for the director Peter Weir that he worked with him again on The Mosquito Coast. Ford later said working with Weir on those two films were two of the best experiences of his career. He valued the process more than the box office.
And then he just enters this period of pure box office dominance. He takes over the role of Jack Ryan in 2 Tom Clancy movies, replacing Alec Baldwin.
Which was not a smooth transition. It led to this very public, long-lasting resentment from Baldwin. But for Hollywood, the choice was obvious. Ford was just a sure thing.
The numbers are just crazy. Between 1977 and 1997, he was in 14 films that were in the top 15 at the domestic box office for their year. He was the most dependable star on the planet.
And that dependability wasn't about flashy acting. It was about feeling real. Roger Ebert summed it up perfectly when he was reviewing The Fugitive.
What did he say?
He called Ford the great modern movie everyman. He said Ford's performances were always understated. He played down the drama, avoided these meaningless flourishes, and just got on with the business of the story. He made extraordinary situations feel relatable.
That's his superpower. Grounded in chaos.
But that level of invincibility can't last forever. The early 2000s saw a string of films that just didn't connect with audiences. Things like Random Hearts, K-19, Firewall.
It's a natural cycle of a long career, right? But he did have one huge hit in that period.
He did. The supernatural thriller What Lies Beneath in 2000. He played the villain, and it grossed almost $300 million worldwide, so the power was still there.
But what's maybe more telling are the roles he didn't take.
Like Syriana. He has publicly said he regrets passing on the lead role in Syriana, the part that ultimately won George Clooney an Oscar.
Why did he pass on such a prestigious project?
It comes back to that same artistic integrity. Ford said he passed because he didn't feel strongly enough about the truth of the material. Even a potential Oscar wasn't worth it if he couldn't connect with the story's core conviction.
But the franchises were still waiting for him.
Oh, yes. Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull in 2008, despite the mixed reviews, was the second highest grossing film in the world that year.
And then, the big one. Han Solo returns in The Force Awakens. But, as we've seen, this came with a huge physical price.
A massive one. During filming, this heavy hydraulic door on the Millennium Falcon set collapsed on him. He suffered a fractured ankle and a broken pelvis.
He had to be airlifted to a hospital.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a serious accident. He was out for 2 months, and they had to completely reschedule the entire production around his recovery.
And, ironically, after all that, they finally killed off Han Solo in the movie, fulfilling the wish he'd had 30 years earlier.
He also returned to the world of Blade Runner in 2049. And critically, his performance was just universally praised. People called it a gut-wrenching interpretation.
It was. But the film itself struggled at the box office. It fell short of the $400 million it needed just to break even. Which just goes to show, critical success doesn't always translate to financial success.
And he finally hung up the fedora for good with Dial of Destiny in 2023.
But what's so remarkable about this late stage of his career is his dedication to supporting roles he believes in and his willingness to just jump into totally new platforms.
Like television.
Yeah.
And specifically, the role he says he's most proud of from this period.
Branch Rickey in the Jackie Robinson biopic 42. And the director was hesitant to cast him at first.
But Ford won them over with his incredible dedication. He wore a fat suit, prosthetics. He completely transformed his face.
And beyond the physical stuff, the research was meticulous. He studied Ricky's life, listened to old recordings, and worked with a voice coach to master this very distinct way of speaking. He just dove in completely.
And that seriousness led to this really surprising pivot to television after 2022. He took on major roles in the Western 1923 and the comedy drama Shrinking.
The contrast is amazing. One is this sprawling, epic Western. The other is this intimate, modern comedy about grief and therapy.
And what's truly shocking is that he accepted both of those huge multi-season roles without a complete script.
That's the critical part. For an actor of his stature, that's almost unheard of. It shows a shift to operating on pure instinct, trusting the creative team and the initial idea.
And it paid off. For Shrinking, he got his first ever Emmy nomination. After 60 years of acting, it just proved he was still eager to challenge himself in completely new ways.
And looking ahead, he's now part of the biggest machine on the planet. He's taking over the role of Thaddeus Ross in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
And he's still advocating for the craft itself. He recently spoke out against using AI in video game acting, standing up for the human element of performance.
It's important when a legend like that takes a stand.
It's easy to just focus on the movies, but so much of who Harrison Ford is lies far away from the camera. This is where the action hero becomes a genuine public servant.
Aviation. It's so much more than a hobby for him. It's like a parallel career. He's a licensed pilot of both fixed-wing aircraft and helicopters.
He actually started lessons way back in the 60s, but had to stop because he couldn't afford the $15 hourly rate.
Which, if you adjust for inflation, is like $156 an hour today. It just shows how desperate those early years were.
He picked it up again in the mid-90s and has just fully embraced it since, especially flying near his big ranch in Jackson, Wyoming.
And his favorite aircraft is his de Havilland DHC-2 Beaver. He loves the sound of its old radial engine.
And there's an incredible story attached to that specific plane. Ford believes it was previously flown in the CIA's Air America operations.
Right, the clandestine airline the CIA used during the Vietnam era. And he thinks it's still riddled with patched-up bullet holes.
So this Hollywood legend is flying a genuine Cold War relic. It's perfect.
But his flying isn't just for fun. It's a form of public service. He has frequently assisted emergency services in Wyoming at their request.
In 2000, he airlifted an EMT to a dehydrated hiker. The next year, he personally rescued a lost 13-year-old Boy Scout. He is, quite literally, a real-life action hero.
Which brings us to my favorite anecdote about his public service. is just so human and hilarious.
Go on.
He was piloting his helicopter during a rescue mission. He pulls aboard this lost, severely disoriented hiker who, as soon as she gets in, promptly vomits into one of the other rescuers' caps.
Oh, no.
And the best part, she was so out of it, she had no idea that the pilot of the helicopter was Harrison Ford.
When did she find out?
Much, much later. And her reported reaction was, "I can't believe I barfed in Harrison Ford's helicopter."
That's amazing. It's the ultimate antidote to the Hollywood myth.
It is. But this passion for aviation has also put him in serious danger. There have been several notable flying incidents over the years.
In 1999, there was a helicopter crash during a training flight. No one was hurt, thankfully.
But then came the really serious one in 2015. He was flying a World War II-era plane, a Ryan PT-22 Recruit, when he lost engine power.
And he had to make an emergency landing on a golf course in California.
That one was severe. He was hospitalized with a broken pelvis and a broken ankle. It was a major, major incident.
And then there were a couple of incidents with air traffic control. In 2017, he landed on a taxiway by mistake, flying right over a Boeing 737.
Which is a huge safety violation. And then a similar thing happened in 2020 where he crossed a runway while another plane was landing. He apparently misheard the instructions.
So there's real risk involved.
Absolutely. But despite that, his commitment to the aviation community is widely recognized. He chaired the EAA's Young Eagles program for years, personally flying hundreds of kids to introduce them to aviation.
And beyond flying, he's been a dedicated environmental and political activist for decades, long before it became a fashionable celebrity cause.
Since 1991, he's been the vice chair of Conservation International. He's been a spokesperson for Restore Hetch Hetchy in Yosemite.
And he brings that same intensity to his advocacy. The incident in Indonesia in 2013 is a perfect example.
Oh, yeah. He was filming a documentary and conducted this incredibly intense interview with the Indonesian forestry minister about illegal logging.
And the interview was so confrontational that the minister accused Ford and his crew of harassing state institutions and threatened to deport them.
But instead of backing down, Ford leveraged his status to get a meeting with the president of Indonesia to make his case directly. He uses his fame as a tool.
You can hear that passion in the speech he gave at the UN Climate Summit in 2019. He told world leaders to listen to the angry young people.
And his closing line was just incredible. He told the leaders, the most important thing we can do for them is to get the hell out of their way.
It's a call for institutional humility. And this is where his activism blends with science in this really extraordinary way.
In recognition of his conservation work, the scientific community has named 3 different species after him: a spider, an ant, and most recently, a snake.
Let's just pause on that. The man whose signature character is famously pathologically terrified of snakes
Now has a species of snake, the Tachymenoides harrisonfordi, named in his honor because of his real-life conservation work.
The irony is just magnificent.
It's a beautiful full-circle moment, and his activism extends to his personal life. He's a lifelong Democrat, he condemned the Iraq War, and he consistently endorses candidates who prioritize the environment.
And finally, there's this amazing feedback loop between his fictional work as an archaeologist and his real-world service.
Yes, the Indiana Jones effect. He serves as a general trustee on the board of the Archaeological Institute of America. His mission is to raise awareness and help prevent looting and the illegal antiquities trade.
He really bridges the gap between the fictional adventurer and the real-world fight for cultural preservation.
And, of course, just a quick note on his personal life. Married 3 times, currently to Callista Flockhart, and he has 5 children. And he's pushed back on the idea he has social anxiety.
Right, he said he just has an abhorrence of boring situations.
Which, given the life he's led, seems completely plausible.
So when you look back, he's accumulated all the honors you'd expect for both the on-screen giant and the off-screen man. The awards for acting are just a testament to his impact.
The Career Achievement Awards are the absolute gold standard. The AFI Life Achievement Award in 2000, the Cecil B. DeMille Award in 2002.
An honorary César in France, an honorary Palme d'Or at Cannes. His global reputation is secure.
And he was named a Disney legend in 2024 for, Indiana Jones and Star Wars. He's won multiple Saturn Awards for those specific roles. And of course, he has a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
But what's almost more impressive are the awards dedicated to his other passions, the things that define the man beyond the myth.
Absolutely. His conservation work was just recognized with the inaugural E.O. Wilson Legacy Award. That puts his environmental efforts on par with his acting.
And his aviation service has been lauded constantly. The Living Legends of Aviation Award, the Wright Brothers Memorial Trophy, these are not celebrity awards. These are for genuine dedication to flight.
And he got the SAG-AFTRA Foundation's Artists Inspiration Award in 2018 for that very combination of acting and philanthropy. They recognize that his service is just as significant as his stardom.
It's so rare to find someone whose filmography is that massive, but whose non-professional life is equally rich with these high-impact contributions.
So, what does this all mean? The journey of Harrison Ford is not one of seamless success. It is a story defined by failure, expulsion, rejection, the necessity of becoming a carpenter, and just sheer stubborn conviction.
He went from being a philosophy major who couldn't get his degree, forced into a trade to support his family, to being a cinematic icon who also pilots real-life rescue missions and has 3 species named after him.
The through line is resilience and an incredible reliance on instinct.
And that leads to this final provocative thought. It links directly to his late career revitalization. Remember, Ford accepted those huge roles in 1923 and shrinking,
The roles that earned him his first Emmy nod and rejuvenated his career.
despite there being no complete script available when he said yes.
He committed based purely on his conviction in the creative team and the idea of the project. His entire career has been about taking action based on instinct, trusting his gut, and leaping into the unknown. It was never about waiting for all the information to be perfect.
It's a career defined by an abhorrence of boring situations, isn't it? It's about conviction leading to movement.
So we'll leave you with this to reflect on. What major decision are you facing right now where you've gathered all the facts, you've analyzed every detail, but you're still hesitating? What could you achieve if you chose to operate, like Harrison Ford at 80 years old, based on pure conviction rather than demanding the complete story in advance?
That is definitely something to chew on. Thanks for diving deep with us today.